Once upon a time, in a colorful village surrounded by golden wheat fields and green hills, there lived a cheerful and beautiful young girl named Sohni. Sohni wasn't just beautiful. She had a heart full of kindness, laughter that could make flowers bloom, and eyes as bright as the twinkling stars. She lived with her family by the side of the Chenab River, a magical river known for its sparkling waters that could make even the saddest person smile. Sohni's family were potters, and they made the most beautiful clay pots in the village. People came from far and wide to buy their bright and colorful pots. Every morning as the birds chirped and the sun peeked over the hills, Sohni would go to the river to fetch water for her family. The river was her favorite place, where the cool breeze would play with her hair and the water would hum a soft, magical tune. One sunny morning, as Sohni bent to fill her water pot, something caught her eye on the other side of the river. A young man stood there, his eyes sparkling like the river. He had dark, messy hair and a smile that could light up the whole village. He was gazing at the water, as though it held a secret just for him. "Hello," Sohni called out, her voice as bright as the sun. "Do you need help crossing the river?" The young man turned around, his face lighting up with a warm smile. "Hello, I'm Mahiwal. I'm just admiring the river. It's more beautiful than anything I've seen in my travels." Sohni's heart skipped a beat. She had never met anyone who spoke so kindly about the river. "I'm Sohni," she said, her voice full of curiosity. "I live in this village with my family. We make clay pots." Mahiwal's eyes sparkled. "I've seen your pots. They're beautiful. I was just wondering if you could teach me how to make one." Sohni laughed. "I can show you, but it takes a lot of practice. Maybe we can work together to make the biggest pot anyone has ever seen." Mahiwal's face lit up with excitement. "A giant pot? That sounds like an adventure. Let's do it." And so, a wonderful friendship began to bloom between Sohni and Mahiwal. They met every day by the river, where Sohni would teach Mahiwal how to shape clay and paint it with beautiful patterns of flowers, birds, and even magical creatures. And every day, Mahiwal would tell Sohni stories from his travels about far-off places with tall mountains, endless deserts, and shiny treasures hidden in the caves. As the days passed, Sohni and Mahiwal's friendship grew stronger. They laughed, they played, and they created wonderful pots together, each one more beautiful than the last. The villagers began to notice how much time they spent together, and the two became the talk of the town. One day, as the sun began to set, Sohni and Mahiwal were sitting by the river, their hands covered in clay. Mahiwal had just finished shaping a large pot, and he was excited to show it to Sohni. "I've added something special to this pot," he said, grinning. "It's a secret." Sohni's eyes widened with curiosity. "A secret? What's inside?" Mahiwal winked. "You'll see soon enough." Just then, a soft breeze blew, and the river seemed to sparkle even more brightly than before. Sohni noticed something strange. The pot began to shimmer with light, as if it had come alive. The clay patterns on the pot seemed to dance, and the birds and flowers painted on it fluttered as though they were real. Sohni gasped. "Mahiwal, the potteet's magic." Mahiwal smiled and nodded. "I added a little magic to it. It's a pot that can bring happiness to anyone who sees it, but only people with a kind heart can see the magic." Sohni felt her heart swell with happiness. "It's beautiful, Mahiwal. You've created something truly magical." As the two looked at the glowing pot, Sohni realized that she had never felt happier. She was surrounded by nature, by her best friend, and by the love they had for each other. It was then that Sohni realized she was falling in love with Mahiwal. But there was a problem. Sohni's family, especially her father, had already arranged for her to marry Raza, a man from a nearby village. Raza was kind, but Sohni did not love him. In her heart, Sohni knew that her heart belonged to Mahiwal. But how could she tell her parents? They had worked so hard to arrange the perfect match for her. How could she go against their wishes? One evening, as Sohni and Mahiwal sat by the river, Sohni spoke sadly. "Mahiwal, there's something I need to tell you. My parents want me to marry Raza. I don't want to, but I don't know what to do." Mahiwal's face darkened with worry. "Sohni, I know how much you love your family, but you also have a right to choose who you love. I want to be with you. I want to spend my life with you." Sohni's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to hurt my family, Mahiwal, but I don't want to marry someone I don't love. I want to be with you, but I don't know how." Mahiwal took Sohni's hands gently. "Sohni, we will figure this out. We will find a way to be together no matter what." But Sohni knew that her path was not an easy one. The next morning, her family gathered to tell her that her wedding with Raza was soon to be arranged. Sohni felt her heart sink. Determined not to give up, Sohni and Mahiwal came up with a secret plan. "We'll run away together," Mahiwal suggested. "We'll go to a faraway place where no one knows us. We'll live by the river where we can make pots and live happily." Sohni's heart raced with excitement. "Yes, we can be free. We can make our own happiness." But Sohni also knew that her family would never let her go so easily. So, the two decided to keep their plan a secret. Every night, after everyone had gone to sleep, they would meet by the river and talk about their future. They dreamt of a life where they could make the most magical pots, where they could live by the river, and where they could always be together. But Sohni's parents soon grew suspicious. They noticed how often Sohni spent time by the river and with Mahiwal. And one evening, as Sohni prepared to leave for another secret meeting, her father stopped her. "Sohni, where are you going?" her father asked sternly. Sohni froze. She had to make a decision. Should she tell her father the truth, or should she keep her secret? Sohni's father, seeing the worry in her eyes, decided to test her. He told Sohni that she had to prove her love for Mahiwal by crossing the river with a Poda special pot that could only be crossed with strength and courage. The pot was made of unbaked clay, and it was fragile. Sohni had to cross the river without breaking it. "If you can do this, Sohni, then you will prove that your love for Mahiwal is strong," her father said. Sohni was terrified. The river was deep, and the current was strong, but her love for Mahiwal gave her strength. She picked up the fragile pot and began to walk towards the river, her heart pounding with both fear and hope. The water was cold, and the current tried to pull her in. Sohni clung to the pot tightly, but it began to crack. The pot wasn't made for this journey. Sohni knew she had to make a choice. Should she save the pot or save herself? Just as she was about to lose her grip, Mahiwal appeared on the other side of the river. "Sohni," he called, "don't worry, I'm here." With Mahiwal's encouragement, Sohni pressed forward. The river was fierce, but together they were stronger. Just when it seemed like the pot would break, the water calmed and the magical pot glowed, holding strong against the current. Sohni reached the other side safely, her heart filled with hope. Sohni and Mahiwal, with their love stronger than ever, decided to run away together, knowing that their love would never be broken by distance or time. The villagers, seeing their courage and love, couldn't help but cheer for them. They crossed the river and made a new life, building pots and living in harmony with nature. And so, Sohni and Mahiwal's love became a legend, told for generations as a story of love that overcame every challenge, a love that shone brighter than the river's sparkle. As Sohni and Mahiwal made their way across the river, they were not alone. The magical river had many secrets, and they soon found out that the river was home to some very unusual creatures. At first, they heard the soft hum of something unfamiliar. It sounded like a lullaby, gentle and sweet. The melody floated through the air like a whisper. "Do you hear that?" Mahiwal asked, looking around. "It sounds like a song." Sohni nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's coming from the river. I think the river itself is singing." As they ventured deeper into the lush forest that bordered the river, a group of sparkling fish jumped out of the water and circled around them, their scales shining like gold. The fish swam in playful patterns, almost like they were trying to communicate with Sohni and Mahiwal. One of the fish, with a shimmering golden tail, approached Sohni. "You are brave, Sohni," the fish said in a soft voice. "The river has been watching you. It sees the strength of your love, and it wants to help." Sohni gasped. "The river can talk?" The golden fish nodded. "Yes, we, the magical creatures of the river, have been waiting for someone with a heart as pure as yours to guide them to the secret of the river." Mahiwal stepped forward, eyes wide with curiosity. "What secret? What can the river teach us?" The golden fish swam in circles, leaving a trail of sparkling water behind. "The river has many gifts to offer, but the greatest gift is the pearl of eternal love, hidden deep within the heart of the river. Whoever finds it will have the power to make their love everlasting, no matter what challenges they face." Sohni and Mahiwal looked at each other. "The pearl of eternal love?" they repeated in unison. It sounded like a dream come true. The golden fish nodded again. "But beware. Many have sought the pearl, but not all have succeeded. The river tests your heart, your courage, and your ability to stay true to your love. Only those who are truly deserving will find it." Sohni smiled. "We will find it, won't we, Mahiwal?" Mahiwal took her hand, his eyes sparkling. "Together we can face anything." And so, the two friends, along with the magical creatures of the river, embarked on a new adventure. The river had more mysteries than they had ever imagined, and the pearl of eternal love was just the beginning. The river's path was winding and mysterious. As Sohni and Mahiwal walked deeper into the forest, they came across a tall, ancient tree with bark that shimmered like silver. At the base of the tree, there was a large stone with strange markings. "What is this?" Mahiwal wondered aloud, stepping closer to inspect the stone. "It looks like a riddle." Sohni, always curious, knelt beside the stone. She traced her fingers over the markings, which seemed to glow under her touch. As soon as she did, a deep voice echoed from the tree. "Only those who understand the nature of love can answer this riddle," the voice boomed. Mahiwal looked at Sohni, both of them eager but nervous. "What's the riddle?" Sohni asked, her voice filled with anticipation. The tree's voice continued. To find the pearl, you must solve the puzzle of love. I am a flame that can never be seen. I am a song that is always heard. I am a promise that is never broken. I am a shadow that stays with you forever. What am I? Sohni and Mahiwal sat down on the grass, thinking deeply. They looked at each other, trying to figure out the riddle together. I think I know the answer, Sohni said after a moment. It's heart. Mahiwal smiled. Yes, the heart is always with us, like a flame we can't see, a song we can hear, a promise that never breaks. The tree's voice boomed again, this time with a hint of approval. You are wise, young ones. The heart is the answer. You may now proceed. With a loud creak, the stone shifted, revealing a hidden path that led deeper into the forest. Sohni and Mahiwal stepped forward, feeling excited but also a little nervous about what lay ahead. As Sohni and Mahiwal continued their journey, the sky began to darken and the air grew cooler. The forest came alive with magic as thousands of tiny fireflies appeared, their lights flickering like stars. The fireflies began to swirl around them, creating patterns in the air. The forest glowed with their ethereal light. Sohni laughed with delight. Look, Mahiwal, it's a dance of fireflies. The fireflies danced around them in a beautiful spiral, their lights weaving in and out of each other. It felt like the forest itself was celebrating their journey. Mahiwal too was enchanted by the spectacle. It's like they know we're here. They're showing us the way. The fireflies led them to a small clearing where a stone altar stood in the center. Atop the altar was a glowing pearl shimmering in the moonlight. It was the pearl of eternal love, just as the golden fish had described. But as they approached, a shadowy figure appeared in front of them, blocking their way. It was a tall, mysterious being, with eyes that glowed like the stars. Only the purest love may claim the pearl, the figure said, its voice echoing in the air. Prove to me that your love is worthy and you may take the pearl. Sohni and Mahiwal stepped forward together, hand in hand. Our love is pure, Mahiwal said confidently. We have faced every challenge together and nothing can break our bond. The figure studied them carefully, then nodded. Your love is indeed strong and true. You may take the pearl. With that, the figure stepped aside, allowing Sohni and Mahiwal to reach the pearl of eternal love. As soon as Sohni held it in her hands, a wave of warmth and light washed over them. They felt their hearts fill with an even greater love than before, a love that was as eternal as the river itself. Sohni and Mahiwal returned to the village, where everyone marveled at the glow of the pearl of eternal love. It was said that the pearl could never be taken away once it had chosen its rightful owners. Sohni's parents, seeing the strength of their love and the magic of the pearl, finally understood. They gave their blessing, and Sohni and Mahiwal were married in a grand celebration by the river. From that day on, Sohni and Mahiwal lived happily ever after, their love shining brighter than any star in the sky. The magical creatures of the river often visited them, and they would tell stories of the brave young couple who found the pearl of eternal love. As the years passed, Sohni and Mahiwal's love became a legend, a story that was told to children across the land. And whenever someone stood by the river and listened carefully, they could still hear the soft hum of the magical river, singing its lullaby of eternal love.